Hi, coming in here live. This is Tracy Powers. I'm a life and relationship coach. And today I wanted to talk about being a woman today. Um, Gender is something that really influences my work, and it's something I think about quite often. There are many layers to that and many ways in which it influences me. Um, One is I'm fascinated with masculine and feminine energy, something that I think many people are starting to become more aware of, and how it can be utilized in your life, in your creation mode. And also just our biological differences and hormonal differences, how a brain kind of seeped in estrogen functions differently and sees the world differently than one in testosterone. As for women, many of you may know that at different points of the month and different points of your cycle, different hormones spike, and that can really influence the way that you feel and the way about you go about being in the world. So I think it is a very real thing. And also, our cultural programming is very different, has been very different for men versus women, especially as we are coming out of a patriarchal society. And what we've been taught to be as women is different than what men have been taught to be. And we're entering a time in which we're exploring more than just these two expressions of gender, and they're still very alive and very prevalent. So let's dive in and unpack some cultural programming we may have received. A few dynamics that I'm seeing happening that I find fascinating, how that might influence you, and ways in which you can become more empowered, and ways in which we can raise the next generation of women. So fascinated to hear your thoughts too. One dynamic that I've witnessed that has really fascinated me is exploring social media, being on Facebook groups, being on pretty large, rather anonymous Facebook groups where people can go and post to complete strangers who they really know nothing about. I've witnessed a lot of women asking some really big questions of complete strangers, giving some really big details of their life and asking for help. And there's a few phrases that I see come in that I find fascinating, such as, is this okay? Is it normal to feel this way? Am I overreacting? Am I underreacting? Should I be worried about this? Is it wrong to want what I want? What should I do? What should I say? Am I crazy? Shouldn't he have done this instead of that? Why didn't they do that? Am I wrong to think that they should have done that? And I just find this fascinating on one level, because asking strangers for advice on big life things, you don't know if they know what they're talking about. You don't know if they have any experience in the realm in which you're living. And I think we are kind of been programmed to actually look outside of ourselves for validation, um, because we haven't always been able to make our own choices and lead by our own example. And we have been programmed to go down certain routes or to not be seen in certain ways, to really need outside approval. Certainly, there is a difference between men and women in, for instance, just what is socially acceptable to comment on someone's physical appearance. Women have been held to beauty standards that have not been met on the other side for men very often, or even um, at all close in the amount of intensity that we have been scrutinized and really objectified. And so we are used to being objectified. We are used to receiving criticism and feedback on something so simple on as how we look. That extends over into our choices as well. Um, it seems to be, I could be wrong here, but it seems to be just more culturally accepted to tell a woman how to live her life versus a man. Women have been trained to be held to the standard of being selfless and to push back. They may be labeled a bitch, for instance. So we seem to have a little bit more self monitoring than some men. And of course, this can happen in different ways. Some women have been trained also to be fiercely independent at a time in which their parents were trying to swing against the patriarchy or seeing the patriarchy at work and wanting their daughters to be prepared. So there are some women who haven't quite fallen into this trap and almost have gone quite the other way of not relying on anyone, making all their own decisions, being really self sufficient, independent. And so I like to explore that there's more than just these two poles, and we don't have to completely swing one way or the other. That maybe in our next generation of raising women, that we don't just teach them to either be fiercely independent or be pleasing so they're attracting the right partner, that there may be so much in between that we can teach them and not just be reactive to what's happening in the culture. But coming back to this idea of women seeking this outside validation by strangers, part of this is not so bad. Like, we are human beings. We do need to relate to one another, to be seen, to be supported. It is essential for our survival, for our emotional needs. And sometimes we don't always have that in our current communities. Maybe at a time in their life, women might be having just moved somewhere new, not have the support system they need, that it's just kind of easier to ask a stranger on the internet and start to get some more wider ranges of feedback. But I think one thing that's really happening is women are bypassing themselves and their own compass of how they want to live their lives. And that's something I think we can really explore and dive into to make a positive shift. One thing that's also in play here is that if someone's upset and looking for outside validation on how they felt, or shouldn't if he have done this, that flavor, like I love reading advice columns. I always have. I remember, being preteen and getting 17 magazine and just devouring the advice column section. Just what I would have said, probably would have known more about my choices in occupation later in life. There's a trail there, but I still love to read these, and it is so often like the New York Times has a fascinating one, and it should be this way. Like, why don't they see my perspective, and why didn't they just do this? And there's this element happening of like wanting that validation. Aren't I right? But one thing that's happening, I think, is that there's a boundary work to be done, a little weakness there in which we're afraid to say, this isn't okay with me. This is, I'd like something else. And instead of being able to say, this isn't okay, and having the follow through of what might happen, and maybe the more you hold these boundaries, certain people will sort themselves out, or they may push back against them. But you don't want to actually have to ask. You want them to just know, so that you don't have to do that work of holding the boundary. And now you're looking for an outside source to back you up and be like, yeah, you were right. They should have just known. and you shouldn't have to ask. But we're all come from such different backgrounds and such different experiences of life that there is no owner's manual, and there is, we have books on manners, but there are no straightforward rules. And so we do have to be more vocal and express our boundaries and do the work of holding our boundaries rather than just looking for outside validation of our boundaries. One other thing that I'm really seeing happen, aside from this looking for outside validation and advice and support, is there's been memes about this. I've seen lots of posts, so maybe you've explored this as well, but about how we have taught girls, and as if you're a grown woman today, you definitely received this message of bypassing our inner feelings and discomfort to do something to make someone else happy or comfortable, to not disappoint them. Like the main example I've seen given is, go give your aunt or your uncle a hug, and the child is feeling shy, feeling uncomfortable. Maybe they're getting a not so great feeling from that individual, and we push them forward anyway. We ask them to bypass whatever uncomfortable feelings they have so that we feel it's more socially accepted. We feel more proud of our child, that they're more outgoing, or we've got to make this elder in our family more happy. And I do think this happens a lot more often with girls. I'm sure it happens with boys too, but kind of, again, the space of a girl or a woman is more open for people to take advantage of or use or instruct. This also taps into our biological urge to be pleasing in order to feel safe. For so long, we have relied on others to protect our safety. We are physically weaker. We are more worried about harm from men than they are worried about harm from us. That's just a reality that that happens from having these two different biological genders. And so for so long, we have had to try to be pleasing to avoid harm, or find other ways to protect ourselves. So it can be a biological urge inside of us to bypass something that we're feeling if we're afraid it would make the other person upset, and then we could inflict harm. So that's just something to be aware of, to know that it is there, to when you have these biological urges, rather than judging them, why am I so, why do I get so affected by that? Or why am I so influenced? Or it must be about my self-esteem, or nope, just it's something that happens and we can acknowledge it. And when we're aware of it, we can make a different choice. Another dynamic that happens that I'm playing with and seeing is the tension that is created from our daughters. That girls are very much viewed as an extension of us, and I'm sure it happens with sons too. And I don't have sons, so I personally can speak more to this experience as a mother of girls, of having daughters, but and of having been a daughter, but that we are afraid that we are being judged by their behavior and by their preferences. And that can create quite a bit of tension inside of us to, again, be pleasing ourselves and try and control or maybe manipulate our daughters so that we ourselves feel more safe. And it's just a space to be aware of and to really find the time and space to honor our daughter's individual expressions and not take things personally and not see it as a reflection on us, and to try not to take on that outside influence. Another interesting dynamic I recently experienced was last night I went to the Lizzo concert, which I don't know if you're familiar with Lizzo, but she, wow, had quite a presence and quite a following, and so had such a strong message of self-love, of body positivity. And I do think there are a lot of younger people in that crowd, a lot of people who have been, who are in different communities that do feel judged for whatever choices or appearances, and really feel called to that message. And it's a beautiful message. And she was so confident and delivered that message so beautifully. And what's interesting for me is also I'm not the youngest in the room and I'm not the oldest in the room. And to feel such a pull to that message, and at the same time, like the inner patriarchy giving me a little resistance to that message. Like, wait, is it safe to be that confident? Is it safe to not worry more about my appearance and just totally own it? And to witness that push pull within myself and know how much of that has come from cultural conditioning. Like, wow, for so long I have seen really thin, white women in the media, and now I'm on a stage of I'm watching, or not, I'm not on the stage, but I'm watching on this stage these beautiful women of color and of larger size, and just working it and owning it. And yeah, that should just be normal and beautiful and accepted. And because for so long that's not what I had witnessed in my programming of like what's beautiful, what should beauty standards should we follow, there's a slight jarring, like, yes, I want this, and whoa, this is different. So totally something to be aware of and to welcome in when you bump up against that cultural conditioning, that media influence. So let's dive into, I know that's a lot of different pieces to talk about what's influencing women today, things that we might be taking part of less consciously. So what do we want to teach? What do we want to change in ourselves and in how we're raising this next generation of women? And the number one thing that I would say, and I'm seeing this in a lot of other teachings as well, is listening to your body and having a real relationship to your body. Well, there's a deer right outside the window. Running through the snow. That you hear, I had a gut instinct, or for me personally, my body has told me a lot of things over the years that I had to bypass some cultural programming to really listen to it and to think about, okay, actually, this is stress. This is my body telling me this situation does not work for me anymore. This is my body like revolting against this relationship in my life or this choice. And I've had an incredible experience of once making a different choice, feeling energy flood back into my body when it had been blocked and stagnated. So your body knows, and to boat your body back on the island, to get back in touch with all the sensations that it's creating and all the signals that it's telling you, and to really allow yourself to listen. You don't have to act on that information right away. And this may be a exercise that you develop for yourself. And I would say that the next thing along with listening to your body is connecting to your heart, which can feel very similar to each other, but often, and this could be a whole nother discussion or a whole nother video, but we have this head versus heart mentality, and can I even trust my heart? And one thing that I believe about that is the heart does know, and it might the head really wants to protect you. So if you're just looking for protection, you may be shutting off the wisdom of your heart. The heart really wants you to learn and have experiences, and it's not going to necessarily guide you into safety, but it will guide you into places that are really valuable and important to you, and you can follow that wisdom. Again, you don't have to, but that's just I would say intuition, body, and heart are three things that as women that we just have so strongly, that are of such immense value. And it's something that I wish I would have been taught, rather than some of the other dictates that I was taught. And it's something I try to teach my own daughters. And it's interesting, again, that like pushback within myself, like, wow, since this isn't totally natural, it's becoming more natural for me as I practice these things to journey and go there myself. But I didn't have the experience of being taught it as a girl. So how do I teach it to my daughters? And I'm really working on that. But I think that is the way in which we start to teach the next generation of women, and we get them back in their bodies, we get them in their heart, we teach them to connect with their intuition and to listen to it and trust it, and to be okay disappointing other people so that you can be self-appointed. And that's a journey of releasing our cultural programming. And one thing we can do with that is gently calling each other out. If we see these things, like there's this dynamic of kind of cultural programming of men. There's all those memes too. I don't know if you've seen them of fathers, and like, wow, he's such a great dad. But wait, if actually a woman was doing that, it'd be like normal, or she'd still be judged, but like, he's just doing it, so he's a great dad. And I think, and I hope that dynamic is shifting. But we can, when we find ourselves getting in these like cultural programming traps, and like we see it in each other, like body shaming, or like calling out the mom when we wouldn't have called out the dad, or like, wow, he's such a great dad. Well, actually, you know what? We're all great parents, and it doesn't matter if he's a dad or a mom, right? So being able to kind of call each other back in, and to catch ourselves in these moments, forgive ourselves, understand we're rewiring the system, we're rewiring our brains, we're rewiring the culture. And another, I think, impactful thing to teach our girls right now is you're not responsible for anyone else's feelings. We have been taught to self-sacrifice, to be selfless. And, it is something I know that, for instance, narcissism happens across gender spectrums, but you see it seems so prevalent of women talking about having been, in relationships with narcissists and really recovering from that. And that becomes possible to have had that happen because we were taught to be responsible for other people's feelings. We were taught to make other people comfortable and other people happy, and to again bypass our own feelings. So this is a time to let go of other people's feelings, to find your own sense of integrity, of what feels good to me, what's in alignment with me. And it's okay if I need to say no in this situation. And that doesn't make me a bad person. That's just me honoring myself. And that can be really difficult if you have been trained to do otherwise, to continue to say, no, this is just what's best for me. And to let go of judgment that you feel might come. So, yeah, you may still want to ask strangers for advice on the internet, but I suggest coming back to yourself. What feels right to you? What can you feel into your body, into your heart, into your intuition? What boundaries, even though it's maybe very difficult, can you honor and set and follow through on? How can we teach our daughters that this is a way to lead our lives now? This is a compass point. And at the same time, we can really bring out the best in men. That's something I love to talk about too. How do we honor our inner compass, honor their inner compass, and how do we come together? I think that's entirely possible within the realm of possibility. And we are making some rather amazing shifts in the culture. So just keep sticking to it. So if this impacted you in any way, I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to answer any questions. You can comment, and take care. Bye.